Okay. Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, USA, the mountains of western North Carolina, home of the Sri Sameshwara Temple. Today's podcast, it's going to be an intriguing one. I've talked to you in the past about mapping. And I started with a very simple principle, how in reflexology, the foot maps onto the rest of the body. I've told a lot of stories about how incredibly that seems to work. The big toe is the head. If you got a headache, there are points in on the big toe that can get massaged and the headache goes away. The heel is the pelvis, and all the different organs are somewhere on the foot. And reflexologists can find those areas, work them, and has a very positive healing effect. So that's a simple example of mapping. Then I went into a more complex, perhaps, or maybe more difficult to understand example of mapping, how the everything maps onto the unified field. It all comes out of the same one thing. That's unified field theories in physics. That's the idea. It's all God, So we see that principle showing up a lot of places. But the principle then is that if you are God, and if everything is God, that means the location, the planets, the moment you were born are God. Everything maps onto everything else because it's all, if you're that and that's that, then that maps onto that maps onto that. So through that, this over there maps onto you over there. So the idea then is the location of the planets in space map onto the moment you were born, map onto your life. Now, that just goes without saying, except for the fact that some mappings are about impossible to read. I mean, how do you know what's going on the other side of Mars by virtue of looking at the arrangement of the dust under your bed? It does map. Everything maps. Everything maps onto everything else. But some mappings are more readable than others. Jyotish, the mapping of the location of the planets onto events or people's lives or whatever, still difficult to read. But there are different levels of expertise to get in some knowledge from that. I could go on about that, but it's a little tangential to what we're doing today because we're taking mapping now to a step that's even more perhaps elusive to comprehend, but more, I think it just all gets more and more and more profound as you take a deeper and deeper look at these principles. So bear with me here, and we're going to kind of go through this, and hopefully we'll all come out in a unified whole, and the concept that I'm wanting to convey here will come across by the time we're done. I guess we'll start with one of my favorite subjects that I've talked about for years, actually, in my lectures, and that is the idea of the manifestation of existence and how it relates to our lives today. Everything maps. So the idea is, like with the Big Bang, for example, or in the Vedic literature, for example, nothing really exists. This is a field of pure no-thingness. And the way they say it in the Vedic literature is it's all just a play of consciousness. Maya. People get discouraged about that. They hear Maya and they think, oh, illusion, this is all illusion, how terrible. Well, no. It's not terrible. It's beautiful. It's exquisite because that's what reality is based upon, and it is real. And look what it creates. It's almost like God, if you will, the unified field, explores its own nature through manifestation of existence. Its beauty is revealed, you see? So let's get into a little bit of the science of it. Positive 1 plus a negative 1 equals 0. I've been talking about this for years, and how then yin and yang up and down, left and right, good and bad, all that. It's inherent in the nature of manifestation, because really there is no thing. +1 plus -1 equals 0. Everything nets out to 0. No thingness, pure isness, pure consciousness, unboundedness, no limits. Look how all that can get created out of no thingness. So it's beautiful and it's profound. Well, now it's very interesting. This really gets cool, because modern physicists are talking about the Big Bang Theory, and in the Big Bang Theory, there's this idea of matter and antimatter. And those of you that have heard my lectures, I've talked about the shape of the universe, and anyway, matter, antimatter, all that. So matter and antimatter, -1, +1, however you want to say it, manifested in equal amounts in the origin of the universe. That created a bit of a problem for people with the Big Bang Theory, because you see, antimatter, like let's take a simple example of a hydrogen atom. It's a proton and an electron, but in matter, the proton is positive, the electron is negative charge. Antimatter's the opposite. So you got a negatively charged proton and a positron, a positively charged electron. Now here's the thing. When those two things come together, there's a huge explosion. Some gamma rays are shot off or whatever, and then there's nothing, no thingness. I think you can get the extrapolation into the manifestation of the universe. Anyway, that created a problem for the Big Bang Theory, because why didn't it just self-annihilate the moment it was created? If you get antimatter and antimatter, boom. So what the popular theory of the Big Bang is, I'll say it that way because there are other theories, but the popular theory of the Big Bang is something, and they don't know what happened to the antimatter. It just kind of disappeared, or at least most of it. And so what we were left with was matter, the material world, existence as we know it. And it went on like that for a long time. But now here's the very cool thing. With the International Space Station, what they've done is they've detected a number of helium antimatter atoms. And the problem with that is that, where did they come from? You know, you can create hydrogen in a antimatter in a nuclear reactor. Helium is tough, but to have it, and it gets annihilated so quickly, it's so heavy. But for it to exist in outer space, there's got to be an unbelievable source, and the source has got to be huge, and it's got to be galactic in proportions. So where all this shakes out is that if you just do the numbers and look at the physics of it and the math of it, which we won't get into, there are galaxies made of antimatter. They're like, our galaxy is part of a supercluster of matter galaxies. And there are tons of them. And that's just one supercluster. And there are tons of them. Now, based on what they're seeing with the International Space Station, there are tons of antimatter superclusters of antimatter galaxies. Now, here's the thing. There are things in space that we see with the Hubble telescope, and all these things are called like gamma ray bursts. Huge galactic explosions far, far away. They're not even in our supercluster of galaxies. Another thing is quasars. Same thing, these huge explosions that physicists don't know where that come from. What are those? all they do is they see them out there, these huge, gigantic explosions outside of our supercluster of galaxies. Well, with the discovery of the idea that, yeah, there are superclusters of antimatter galaxies out there, which is what I've been saying for years. I mean, I just have to say it because there's a thing called Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. You do Sanyaman on the Yoga Sutras. It's like a meditation kind of thing. And one of them, you see the shape of the universe, and there's a matter universe. And you've heard me lecture about this, those that come to my lectures. There's the matter universe, and then it goes around. It's antimatter universe. Equal proportions creates the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic egg, which is like represented by the Shiva Linga. Anyway, what happens if antimatter comes in contact with matter? There's a huge explosion. And so you might say that there's the edge of the antimatter part of the universe coming in contact with the matter part of the universe. And when they touch, you get quasars, you get gamma ray bursts, you get all that stuff. And that's revolutionary. Are you guys with me, Adrian and Scott?
Yeah.
Loving it.
This is making sense. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all. ISS, the International Space Station, really revealed a lot there. And here's another very cool thing: lightning. They never knew this. I think 20 years ago, physicists didn't know this. They're just coming up with it. And here's how it works. With lightning strikes or lightning bolts, it doesn't even strike anything, just lightning in the sky, they were detecting gamma rays coming out of lightning. Gamma rays is associated with nuclear reactors and matter antimatter annihilation when they come together, things like that. So here's how that works. Lightning is so incredibly powerful. I don't think perhaps we didn't even appreciate how powerful. So what happens is when there's a lightning burst, some electrons get propelled with what they call relativistic velocity. What that means is it's a significant percentage of the speed of light. They're moving that fast. Huge amounts of energy. And so these electrons, and with huge amounts of energy, are flying through the vicinity of the lightning bolt, and they strike matter. They strike maybe air or whatever. And when they do, they lose some energy. They get slowed down. And in modern physics, the way that's manifests is that the loss of energy goes into a gamma ray. And so now you got a gamma ray shooting off of the electron when it loses its energy, and that gamma ray hits an air molecule, splits the air molecule or the atom, and as a result, it creates some antimatter and matter. It splits it. They do this in like the CERN,
the colliders,
particle accelerators. That's what they're doing. They're taking subatomic particles like an electron, and they'll do interesting things with gold, incidentally, and they'll speed it just really fast, and then it crashes. It's done something for a minute. You create some antimatter, but then you see we're talking there hydrogen, which is just one proton and one electron, as opposed to helium, which is two. And so what we have, every time you see a lightning bolt, you've got a nuclear reactor. That's actually a little mini, not really so many, but it's a nuclear reactor.
Well, Michael, on the normal gamma, like when they talk about those gamma bursts, or like aren't they when like two stars come together, or what is that?
They didn't know. They really didn't know what a gamma ray burst was or what a quasar was.
Okay.
There were theories, and but this seems to be something very clear. It just makes a lot of sense.
Logical.
But now here's very logical. But here's the thing now. The Big Bang people, at least the ones that adhere to the main theory of the Big Bang, are upset with this. They're feeling threatened because it blows their whole theory of the universe, and it blows because they, again, what comes out of the numbers and the calculations that uphold their theory of the Big Bang is that somehow, and they didn't even know how, the antimatter just kind of disappeared, and they didn't even know how. So now they're stuck with the fact that there are these huge super clusters of galaxies of antimatter out there.
Right. Does that hold, does that at all like map onto the parallel universe thing?
I don't know. Oh, well, let's see. Parallel. Nah. I have my own theory of parallel universes, and it's consistent with the Vedic actually. And what that says is, it's along the lines of prapancham. Now, prapancham, and I've talked about this before, our universe, what we consider a universe, in the Vedic literature isn't considered a universe. There's only one universe. They would consider what we consider to be our universe, they call that a prapancham. It's kind of like a world, or big, but still, it's a prapancham. And there are tons of prapanchams. And the universe is the sum total, holds the sum total of all prapanchams within it. But now prapanchams exist on different levels. I have my own prapancham. It's my own world. You have your own prapancham, Scotty. Adrian, you have your own prapancham. We all have our own prapanchams. And we perceive reality different. And reality, because all this is illusion anyway, a reality is really perception. And that's even a whole other thing that can come right out of modern physics in a beautiful way. See, here's the thing. I was a physics major, physics and math double major in undergrad, top of my class. I loved it. I lived and breathed physics. But, and this was really hard for me. It was like a dark night of the soul for me. When I realized that they don't understand, they don't have a context that they can grasp the real nature of what's going on, And I got disenchanted then with the modern physicists. Classical physics, that's all easy, that's all cool. But modern physics, there's so much more. And trying to put it in this tiny little world of what they can comprehend, I got disheartened with it. I really did. And it was heartbreaking for me. But at one point I realized that I wasn't going to find the truth, which is why I went into physics anyway. What's this universe? What is it? And how does it work? And now here's an example of that may delineate, I don't know, I don't want to get too critical, but Newton had this idea of absolute velocity. Now, what is absolute velocity? Well, everything's relative. So if you're sitting here and somebody's driving away at 10 miles an hour, then they're going 10 miles an hour. If they're going the speed of light, they're going the speed of light. Nothing exceeds the speed of light. No, let's do it another way. But if I'm going 10 miles an hour parallel to you, then relative to each other, we're both standing still, right? So the idea then is that velocity is relative. Did that make sense, you guys? I kind of screwed it up when I started out.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So what Newton said is there's such a thing as absolute velocity. And here's what they've done with that today. You know what the Doppler effect is? When a car buzzes by, it goes, yeah, like that. And so the frequency changes. Because when it's going away from you, the wavelength is stretched out from bing, 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 bing. It goes bing, and it's further away to travel. So bang. Whereas if it's coming at you, it seems faster. Bing, bing, bing. So yeah, like that. Okay. So
nice sound effects. Yeah.
If you look at at outer space, they realize that in one direction it's a little more blue, and in the other direction it's a little more red, and that's because we're moving through space. Does that make sense? And so it's like that.
But for light or like.
Yeah, it's a Doppler effect with light. Light is a frequency too.
Right.
That's cool.
Okay. All right, good. Well, and so what they say is then, okay, great. Now we've got absolute velocity, because velocity isn't relative to who's driving next to you in the car. Velocity is absolute with respect to the context of the whole universe. And we can determine that by virtue of the blue-red shift type thing. Is that clear? Because here's what I say to that. And, astronomers and physicists, these guys like to think, well, anyway. How do you know? Because what they're basing on is a visible universe, right? How far they can see out, stars in that direction, stars in that direction, and blue, red, and that. How do they know that that's any significant fraction of the totality of what's out there in our universe, our propunction? This could just be one little corner that the Earth is moving through with an old meow effect. There's sound effects for you again, Scotty. But this whole little ball could be whirling through in a certain direction in the greater universe that we can't even perceive. Because how do we know that the edge of what we can see is the edge that defines the limits of the universe? We have no idea. And we can extrapolate that out. Everything maps. Why aren't we willing to embrace the idea that there's something beyond what we can currently see? And even the idea of absolute, I mean, I hope they're at least saying absolute with a small a, absolute velocity. There's an absolute with a big A, and it's that unbounded, pure isness, transcendental. How do you know that? Okay. Even modern physics, and I love it. Believe me, I love it. I believe in it. Engineering, physics, great. Chemistry, fantastic. But at the same time, it's all based on observable. I don't know, Newton probably took a ball and rolled it down a ramp and measured how fast it went and everything. And now all of a sudden it's all just understanding the universe based upon what's observable. And what can't be observed, they call it metaphysics, basically they call it foolishness,
No, Michael, also.
But hang on. I'm halfway through. Don't forget your thought. Because there's another way of accessing knowledge. And this is so important. And that is that if you are one with the universe, if you are one with the unified field, which is a source of everything, then everything exists within your awareness, within you. And you can gain knowledge that way. That's why through the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, I can see the shape of the universe, matter, antimatter, also even the core of the universe. I could get into that sometime. I think I have talked about that before. But it's because knowledge dwells within. Observable knowledge is another thing. And it's part of the Veda. Observable knowledge is real, but it's a subset of the greater source of knowledge. So, Scotty, what were you going to say?
How the physics change depending on where you go, like.
Oh yeah. You try taking a matter spaceship and flying it over to an antimatter galaxy. It would decompose. It wouldn't just decompose, it would explode.
Yeah.
Matter comes in contact with antimatter, kaboom, you get a quasar. Maybe that's what quasars are. Anyway, so now having said that, I want to get into the context that I'd like to access in this podcast, which is global current events, ISIS to ISS, the good news. So here's what's going on. Let's take a step back. Here's what's going on. The whole intergalactic dynamic, it's almost kind of like there's a cosmic hands careening through space. It's like if you take your hand in a smoke-filled room and go like that, you get all kinds of turbulences and swirls. And or maybe you see the pictures of planet Earth from outer space where you get all the swirls of weather and clouds and things. The whole intergalactic super clusters of galaxies, it's all a swirling dynamic like that. Now, again, mapping. If you walk through a smoke-filled room, it has an effect on you. If you walk into a room that is saturated with a toxin, it's going to have an effect on you. If you walk through a room in a hospital where anesthesia gas got leaked into the room, it's going to have an effect on you. We're very much subject to our environment. And I'm not just talking about our environment because of maybe pollution in the air or fresh air or what have you. I'm talking about the intergalactic environment. We're moving through all sorts of influences of intergalactic proportion that we have no idea about, no understanding about, but not by observable, but through Vedic knowledge, it's been cognized. And there are cycles, just like, the Earth goes around the sun in a cycle, and there are different cosmic cycles like that. And right now, and it's in the Veda, it's in Jyotish, it's in numerology, it's in, well, I've talked about, what different seers have said in recent times as well as ancient times about this moment in time. That's a phase transition. And I'm telling you, so many people have contacted me and they're distraught. It's like, what is going on in the world? I mean, the list is, there's no end to it. Taiwan has little computer chips. Scott, you may know more about this than me. Little computer chips that are essential in automobiles that are being manufactured all over the world. And it's a technology that they dominate.
Yeah.
And now China's trying to take over Taiwan. And if they do, then they've got their vice-like grip on that. And then China goes to different countries in the world, in Africa and like that, and takes over their infrastructure. And then they've got control of those countries. So that's one thing that's going on. India, the virus in India, the coronavirus in India is at horrific proportions right now. Israel, Hezbollah, that whole thing going on. It's another unbelievable. Iran and that threat, North Korea. I mean, the list goes, the economy, the European economy is horrible. The US economy with all the money that's being printed and everything, my God, what's going to happen? China's economy is terrible. The whole global economy is, it's really in turmoil. The list goes on and on. I went and bought a 2x4 the other day. I remember 2x4, $2-3. It was $9. And now I've heard that since that time, it's gone up even more. Inflation has gone ballistic. Of course, if you look at gold, why isn't gold, $10,000 an ounce? Well, they're manipulating it. It's well known that the gold prices are being manipulated. Everything is just, and I made a list here. Like corruption is and debates, and the right hates the left hates the right. No, the election was rigged. No, the election wasn't rigged. I mean, we've got a mess. What is going on? There have been troubles in the world, of course, throughout history. World War II, my God. But here, it's like all facets of the fabric of life. patriotism is now a mockery. Allegiance to your country, borders, everything is being attacked in both directions. If you believe in patriot, you're a fool. If you're not a patriot, you're I don't know what, a Marxist or globalist or I don't know what. Nobody's getting along. It's a phase transition. It's been predicted. If we can just take a step back and not have a narrow little viewpoint of the little world that we can see, but put it in the context of a greater context. And where do we find that? Yeah, okay, fine. We can get it in the Vedic literature. We can get it from Jyotishis, from numerologists. But the real place you're going to get it is from deep inside, going inward and finding it within yourself. And that's it. And that doesn't mean as deep inside as you can go right now. It means as deeply inside as it's humanly possible to go as the physiology has been refined. And again, what do people think going is deeply inside means? They think, again, it's kind of like, the visible universe. As deeply as they're capable of going now, that's as deeply as one can go. No. It's a cultivation. It's an evolutionary process. It's a refinement of the human physiology that takes lifetimes. People, they say, oh, I've been meditating 10 years, so I'm talking to Krishna now. And it's like ridiculous, and people employing techniques of blowing their third eye open. And now they see all these lights and they think they're enlightened. I mean, come on. Humility is the flip side of wisdom. Anyway, the good news, this is the phase transition. It just makes sense. It fits into the whole greater scheme of things. And one more thing I'm going to say, and then we're done. And that is that why is it so hard to believe that the thing that birthed personified beings, the source of that intelligence that was capable of bringing into origin personified beings, sentient beings, why is it so hard for people to believe that that too isn't personified, that too isn't sentient? In fact, it only makes sense. How can you create a greater coherence out of lesser coherence? There is a greater coherence. It's God, it's intelligence, it's divinity, and it's multifaceted. It's not simplistic. It's profound and vast and with many faces. I think that's all I have to say for now. Scott or Adrian, anything?
Oh, it's beautiful.
All right. So we'll talk with you again next week. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Is this thing working?